Hello. I was beginning to think I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. It's so nice to see you. How are you guys? I'm good.
Yeah.
We're
Can you hear us?
Yes.
So how are you?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Thank God. Okay, also.
almost entirely surrounded by snow.
You are?
You're in Philadelphia, I think?
Yes.
So how's your snow level?
We're probably like half a foot, which is a lot for Philadelphia, but that's like accumulated over the last two storms. We didn't get a lot last night.
Okay, good.
We have some to lend.
You can ship it over. My children would be delighted.
We'll get an envelope. We'll send you some.
Exactly.
Do they go sledding?
Yes, we are very, very lucky because we have a steep slope driveway into our backyard. So our kids are little. They're 7, 5, and 2. So that's like the perfect amount of hill for them. And it's right in our backyard. So we sled down there often.
Wow, that's convenient.
Yes, it is very lucky. My cousins have a steep slope too, but it goes into the street. So it's not as convenient.
Can they get enough, or can they stay there all day?
My oldest loves to be out there. So she sort of makes it fun for the other two to stay out with her. But after a while, the baby comes in, the 2-year-old. But the big kids made a snowman, and we have a swing set, so they sort of put snow on the slide, and then they go shooting, probably very dangerously, off the slide.
Years ago, when our granddaughters were younger and they'd come to visit in the winter, if we were lucky, we could take them sledding. There's a place called Mount Trashmore nearby. It was a garbage dump, which was covered over, I guess, and turned into a recreational place.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah. I don't know if it's still there, if they're still using it that way or not. It's been a few years.
Interesting. Where did your grandchildren grow up?
Oh, in different cities. In New York, Long Island, and Indianapolis.
Philadelphia.
And no, where did they grow up?
Oh,
yeah. So New York and Indianapolis.
Oh, cool. So they weren't strangers to snow, but it was fun to go sledding with you.
Yeah, that's right.
That's wonderful. And one of them lives in Philadelphia now? Yes. Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, nice. In the city or in one of the suburbs?
In the city, actually. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Very cool. How are you guys, Dan and Debbie?
We're okay.
We're good.
We're okay. Can't complain.
Excellent. Until Tamara and Jerry came, I was worried I was in the wrong place. I was just checking the Zoom room.
Having some technical difficulties. We figured.
Oh, that's okay. I figured maybe people were enjoying their, cozy inside weather now.
We just keep getting more snow.
Wow.
We are enjoying the cozy inside.
That's true.
It's the freezer. The kitchen freezer.
That's wonderful. Well, maybe we'll give the straggler or two maybe another minute, and then we can jump in. They are predicting more snow here. I don't know about Chicago, early next week.
We're supposed to get more snow on Shabbos, so.
I think did they say 2 to 4 inches? Did we hear that, or it was a fever dream?
No, that's what they're saying. So it's going to be a good day to sit inside and have cholent.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be very, very cold here on Shabbos. We canceled our minyan because even indoors, there are 2 doors on either side of the room, and it's just too cold. So there's always next year, right?
You do what you can do.
Exactly. Okay, well, I guess it will be a small group, but small is good. This is an active participation group, so that's nice. This week, let's see. I'm not sure it's going to work. Hold on. I don't know if this is like just my Zoom, but if I share my screen to an Internet Explorer window, no matter which window I pick, it goes to the one that is open. Okay, so now we're in the right place. Okay, so last week which I had a lot of fun. I hope you guys did too. We looked at a lot of traditional on the page of the Chumash classical commentaries. And so this week I thought we would swing to the other side of the timeline and look at two much more contemporary approaches to a pasuk in this week's Parsha. This week is Parshat Mishpatim, which is a lot of laws. We're actually learning Bava Kama as our Gemara in Yeshiva this year, but I was not going to subject anyone to the the very boring nuances of oxes and pits and mountains. So I decided that we would skip to the ends of the Parsha and sort of bypass a lot of interesting and nuanced and also very sort of legalistic pieces and go to the phrase, which I think is fairly famous, of Na'aseh v'nishma. And so we see in the pasuk that it says "V'yikach sefer habrit v'yikra b'aznei ha'am," right? That Moshe takes the record of the covenant and reads it aloud to the people. V'yomru, and they say, "Kol asher diber Hashem na'aseh v'nishma." Everything that God did, na'aseh v'nishma. I took out the English translation. I didn't particularly like it, and I thought if this is what we're focusing on, we should translate it ourselves. And I wondered if any of you, if you'd like to share, have like a conception of what it means. I think it's such a well-known phrase that probably lots of people just assume it means what they learned, in school or at shul or wherever. Is there like a particular midrash or interpretation that people are partial to here?
I have just a tiny little silly point, and that is, it seems to me it should say nishma v'naaseh, not naaseh v'nishma.
Beautiful, not silly at all. Actually, the question I want us to look at, so I love that. Yes, right, that it seems like perhaps it's out of order, right? Why wouldn't it be? Why do you think it's out of order, Tamar?
I don't know. I have to think about it, I guess.
Well, the Hebrew school, what you're taught is that they agreed to do everything that God said just based on his word, and then they would be happy to learn about the reasons afterwards.
Right, beautiful. So Dan is, and that is certainly what I was taught at my day school. That's sort of the Rashi approach borrowed from the Gemara in Masechet Shabbat. And that is because Rashi is like rather unbothered with the chronological order, right? Ein mukdam u'meuchar b'Torah. There's no chronology in the Torah. And so he's happy to say that they said Na'aseh v'nishma, and then they got the 10 Commandments, and then they got all of Sefer Mishpatim, even though it really does feel a little bit counter even to this very pasuk, right? Where it says that Moshe read the Sefer Habrit to the Am, and then they said Na'aseh v'nishma. But certainly that is what I had learned also. And then I got to college and took like some sort of cool Gemara class. And I learned this Gemara, also Masechet Shabbat, about how God held the mountain over the people. I don't know if that's well known also. Yeah, I guess maybe I was just late to the party. And I thought, wow, what a terrible image. I was so upset. Right? Like here we are, we're supposed to be our most spiritual, like this is so beautiful. We love Torah. No, actually, we just didn't want to get squashed by Har Sinai. Like it's really a little bit disappointing to me. And so I thought surely there must be other sort of more advanced approaches beyond the Torah over the head model. And indeed, there are many, and they are beautiful. So I thought that we would start with Rev Cook. This is taken from a book called Silver from the Land of Israel. I think it's the sequel. The first book is called Gold from the Land of Israel. And Rabbi Hanan Morrison brings us the words of Rev Cook in English and translated in a way that is, easier. Even if you're fluent in Hebrew, Rev Cook can sometimes take a lot to unpack. And I took I took bits and chunks of a longer essay, of course, to think about this. And Rabbi Morrison presents Rev Cooks Question, which is exactly Tamar's question. Right? They made two promises, Bnei Israel, to do and to listen, and the order is crucial. They promised to keep the Torah even before knowing why. The Midrash in Shabbat, the one that I referenced, or a different one, related that in the merit of this pledge of loyalty, the angels rewarded each Jew with 2 crowns. And then a heavenly voice explained, "Who revealed to my children the secret used by the angels?" What was so special about this vow, we will do and we will listen? On the contrary, would not fulfilling mitzvot with understanding and enlightenment be a superior level of Torah observance? And why does the Midrash refer to this form of unquestioning allegiance as a secret used by the angels? Right, so Rev Cook is asking two questions. One is, why is the order important, as Tamar asked, right? There feels to be something sort of backwards about it, especially if you think about learning, right? Understanding the mitzvot as being the ultimate goal. And that also in the Gemara, talking about these different models, it seems like somehow Bnei Israel has reached this sort of angelic level by saying this very statement, Na'aseh v'nishma. And so what is good about it, and what is actually so good that it's almost like an angelic level, are his questions. And so he introduces us to this phrase called intuitive knowledge, which I thought was really interesting. Does someone else want to read? It's all in English. It's okay.
Intuitive knowledge also exists in the spiritual realm. Is that where we are?
Mm-hmm.
Angels are sublime spiritual entities who do not require extensive Torah study in order to know how to serve God. Their holiness is ingrained in their very nature. It is only human beings prone to being confused by pseudoscientific indoctrination who need to struggle in order to return to their pristine spiritual selves. For the Jews who stood at Mount Sinai, it was not only Torah and mitzvot that were revealed. They also discovered their own true inner essence. They attained a sublime level of natural purity and intuitively proclaimed, "We will do. We will follow our natural essence unhindered by any spurious, artificial," can't read that word. You got conventions.
Oh, sorry, conventions. Yes. I can never see. I don't seem to understand what you guys see. And I think that actually we did skip the paragraph about the bees, which I thought was fascinating. He's right in this paragraph here. Rev Cook says that, right, intuitive knowledge requires no formal education. For example, the bee naturally knows the optimal geometric shape for building honeycomb cells, and no bee ever needed to register for engineering courses at MIT, which I just thought was so funny that Rev Cook talked about MIT and engineering, but he was certainly a person of the world and also a person of Torah. Right, so Rev Cook is explaining that there's something about there's something almost pre-programmed into our souls, if we can tap into it, that intuitively knows how to do the mitzvot. And if we sort of let go of like our brain, that we can achieve this level. What do people think? Does this resonate, not resonate?
I mean, it reminds you of that midrash of why you have that little thing under your nose. They come out crying. That they know everything in the womb, but only when they're born do they forget it intuitively, and they have to relearn it all.
Right, nice. I will admit that sometimes I teach a class in my own community on the Parsha on Wednesday night, and sometimes we do the same thing, and sometimes I do different things for you guys. And I really liked this, and it fell totally flat last night. My friend Susie was like, "This sounds like cultish behavior. Why would you strive for this?" So I want to own that there is space, obviously, for dissent here. But to me, I thought this was such an interesting idea that it's almost like Disney princesses is where I live right now, right? Like the power is inside of you, right? You go like looking for it, but like really it was right there. You just had to sort of unlock it in your own being. I thought there was something empowering about this.
I mean, I think it's a pretty Jewish concept, and Kiruv organizations use it all the time, right? There's that little spark of Judaism in you. We just have to figure out how to, make it become a flame again.
Right. A pintala yid. That's right. I forgot about that. Yeah. Okay. So maybe it's nice, right? And I think there's also something very leveling about it. You don't need to be a huge Torah scholar, right? Which is probably why Kiruv organizations like it. Everyone sort of is on the same level, especially at Har Sinai, right? And if every neshama was there at Har Sinai, we all have it. We just need to sort of find it. So that was one approach. The second approach, I brought two approaches sort of that I teased out of Rabbi Sachs. One is his summary of the Akedat Yitzchak, Isaac Arama. I looked for this in the original text to bring. The way that the Akedat Yitzchak works is he's organized by Parsha, and each Parsha has these gates 2 or 3 gates, and they're very long, and I could not find it, but I trust Rabbi Sachs that he is accurately quoting the Akedah Yitzchak here. So the italicized is my explaining that he's summarizing. And so this paragraph is, I would say, the perspective of the Akedah Yitzchak. And he explains that the word Shema, right? Rabbi Sachs, it does not surprise me that he brought this Akedah Yitzchak, because he is very interested in what the word Shema means. Like in Shema Yisrael, if you have a Koren Sidor, the Rabbi Sachs Koren Sidor, if you go to the Shema, I'm not sure which one, probably Shacharit of weekday, there's like a whole page about what it means to Shema. Is it really to listen, or is it to understand? Is it to obey? It's super interesting. I highly recommend that page of the Siddur. I told someone last night I'd find it and copy it so I can offer it to you guys as well. Hello, Sai, welcome. We're talking about not 70 Shema, what it means to do and then to listen, when you might think it would be to listen and then to do. So Rabbi Sachs explains that the Akedah Yitzchak explains that the word Shema can have the sense of understanding. So not to listen like with your ear, but to understand more in your brain. As in God's statement about the Tower of Babel, Migdal Babel, let us then go down and confound their speech there, right? That's God talking, so that they, the people, shall not understand. And there the word is Yishma'u, one another's speech, right? So in Migdal Babel, it uses the word Shema. It doesn't mean physically listen. They didn't all go deaf, but they just couldn't understand one another. According to this explanation, when the Israelites put doing before understanding, they were giving expression to a profound philosophical truth. There are certain things we only understand by doing. We only understand leadership by leading. We only understand authorship by writing. We only understand music by listening. Reading books about these things is not enough. So it is with faith. We only understand Judaism by living in accordance with its commands. You cannot comprehend a faith from the outside. Doing leads to understanding. So I also liked this one. Spoiler, there's no piece I didn't like that I brought. But here I thought this was sort of a nice contrast in some ways, or other side of the coin, right? I wouldn't say it's really like a machloket with Rev Cook, that it's not about having it inside of you and unlocking it. It's the doing that unlocks it. That you have to sort of jump in and get your hands dirty. Like no matter how much you study playing basketball, until someone throws you the basketball on the court and you have to do something, you probably don't really understand what it means to play basketball. I'm sure other people have experiences of where that has felt true to you, where you think you know what you're ready for and you're prepared, and then you do it and it's a whole different experience, a whole different ballgame. And so I liked this idea that it wasn't accidental. It wasn't about the order of the Parsha. It was about the way that we experience Judaism. It's like a full contact sport. Great. If no one has any extra comments or ideas. So the last part from the same essay is Rabbi Sachs's idea. And he is not really interested in the order, but I think this is also a nice complement sort of to the question about the order. Is Rabbi Sachs tries to understand what's the difference between Na'aseh and Nishma, besides the sort of physical versus understanding or intuitive understanding. And so he explains that at the level of Na'aseh, the Jewish deed, we are one, as a people. To be sure, there are differences between Ashkenazim and Sfardim. And in every generation, there are disagreements between leading poskim, halachic authorities. And that is true in every legal system. Poor is the Supreme Court that leaves no space for dissenting opinions. Yet these differences are minor in comparison with the area of agreement on the fundamentals of halacha. Maybe I'll read the whole thing, then I'll offer my comment. At the level of Nishma, in contrast to Na'aseh, right? Understanding, however, we are not called on to be one, right? It's not even the idea. I think that really pulled me to this piece. Judaism has its rationalists and its ethics. its philosophers and its poets, scholars whose minds were firmly fixed on earth, and saints whose souls soared to heaven. The rabbi said that at Sinai, everyone received the revelation in his or her own way. We will do and we will understand means we will do in the same way. We will understand in our own way. Rabbi Sachs, believe that action unites us, leaving us space to find our own faith. Mm-hmm. So on some level, this kind of brought me back to the Sfat Emet from last week, where the Sfat Emet, right, said there's like sort of an objective and a subjective piece of the revelation, that the sight piece is objective and the hearing like goes inside of your own body. And this sort of reminded me of that. The sight and the naaseh are sort of the thing that's sort of on the outside of us. And the nishma and the hearing was the piece on the inside of us. My feeling when I read this was like, this is so nice, like aspirational, but really, like, are we all one, agreeing on the fundamentals of halacha? I don't know if that's a European American divide, or if that's Rabbi Sachs speaking from his own more insular community. But I think whether it is aspirational or realistic, it's a nice idea to think that like we all celebrate Shabbat together, we all go to shul together, we all hear the shofar together, whatever those experiences are, they happen like as one, but that what everyone is thinking about like what it means to celebrate Shabbat or what it means to hear the shofar during a Aseret Yemei Tshuva, that is sort of up to each person's individual piece. And so it's right in this way, I think when we think about Naaseh v'Nishma, it's much easier. We can all act together as one, but the understanding each individual sort of perspective will come later.
So I had, years ago, I was visiting one of my boys in yeshiva. You know, they were there for the year, and they had, a lunchtime thing where the different rabbis would get up and give their perspective on Judaism. And you know, the first one got up with his guitar and he plays and he sings. And he says, for me, it's all about singing and guitar and music and davening. And yeah, I learned Gemara, but I just had to do that to become a rabbi. And then the next guy got up and said, you know, I've been davening 3 times a day for 30 years and I can think, or 50 years, whatever. He said, I can think of maybe twice where I thought that I got a meaningful experience out of davening and spirituality. But my approach is I approach God through Gemara and through learning. So maybe that's what he's talking about a little bit, that there's different paths to find your closeness to God. And both of these people know that, yeah, you have to daven 3 times a day. You know, you have to learn the halachas to be a rabbi. But it's just sort of how you approach it.
Yeah. And I think, right, I don't know, like, how did that sit with you? Like, did the boys laugh when he said that? You know, like, right, I think sometimes we think like, oh, how could those guys both be rabbis and both want to teach here? Like, what does that even mean?
I thought that was great for them. It was empowering for them because, you know, every kid who goes to yeshiva, I'm sure, first of all, goes to daven 3 times a day and often is like, well, what am I doing here? You know, this is meaningless to me. And I think it was empowering for them to hear they're one of the Rosh Hashivot say, yeah, I don't get anything out of davening most of the time. So I think that was actually helpful rather than a hindrance in any way.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I think the idea of nishma being personal is very empowering, because it means there's no wrong way, right? As long as you do the naaseh as one, right? So
right.
That
just
Rebbe
like
still went to
that. Say, you know, you got to come to minyan every morning, but yeah, it might be a struggle.
Yeah. And that you're, you know, I think oftentimes, like I've heard that sort of perspective from Rebbeim before also, right? Like that it will come over time. Or it's like, in my opinion, how football operates, like a lot of busyness. And then there's that one beautiful play for like 2 minutes of that whole 3-hour experience, right? So like you might go your whole life and not have very inspired tefillah, but you do it in part because you might have one experience a year or a decade or in your whole lifetime where you do sort of feel that transcendence. but also how lucky is it, right? I think, and this is part of Rabbi Sachs's point, how lucky is it that there are so many avenues? Go to davening, don't be inspired, but then be super inspired, learning Gemara or teaching your kids Chumash or whatever the thing is, right? That there's something for everyone.
Yael?
Yes.
Yeah, I was just thinking of another expression using the word Shema, but not in the sense of hearing. And I think it's related to what we're talking about. Mitoch lo lishma ba lishma.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of related.
Yeah.
If you're doing something by rote and not really out of true commitment or true understanding, but the promise of that phrase is that if you do it faithfully and enough, in the end, you'll have a true understanding or a true commitment, or maybe you can explain it better than I'm doing it. But
no, you're doing a great job.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful, right? I think that's both the piece that Dan was talking about, that we were talking about davening, and also using the word Shema and not the sort of literal hearing, but much more about understanding. And I think like fulfilling understanding, right? That's the whole idea, is that if you do it, eventually you might hopefully get to that fulfilling understanding. Yeah. Beautiful.
And the word Shema also comes up where God says to Abraham, Shema b'kolah, listen to her voice. And there we have both meanings. God is telling Abraham to listen to Sarah's voice, but he's also saying, follow her direction, or follow her advice, or follow her.
Right. God didn't mean like you're too far away in the tent, you can't hear her. He meant like really hear her. Yeah. My cousin, I can't remember which way she says it now, but when she's talking to her kids and she's not listening, I think it's that when she's far away, she says, I can't hear you. But when she's close, she says like, I'm not listening, right? Like she's being honest. I'm not understanding you because I'm not paying attention, as opposed to like, I physically can't hear you. She's like very intentional about those words. I think that's right. Yeah, and it brings a whole new idea to what it means to say Shema Yisrael, Hashem, Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Does it mean listening? Does it mean understanding? Some of the more traditional commentaries say Na'aseh v'nishma means, right, like we will do as you will command us, that nishma is about obeying. But I think that understanding is like a much more evolved translation. A lot more rich like layers there.
And the pasuk said, Nishma v'na'aseh, would have been very straightforward. Why was that one abandoned?
Interesting. You mean you think maybe it said it this way so that we would search for more meaning? Nice. I like that. Yeah, I think this is also, right, it's a way of trying to unpack what it felt like to be there on some level, in the confusion of the moment, in the overwhelming sensory experience of the moment, and also thinking about what it means for us today to sort of feel or echo the values of being in that space. And so whether it's, honoring our intuitive knowledge, or, understanding that you have to jump in, even if you don't, not to let your lack of understanding stop you from trying it out. That both of those are sort of different ways of thinking about what it felt like to be there at Har Sinai, to be a part of this new people, and also to give meaning to how we approach Judaism today. All right. I wish everyone a Shabbat Shalom. I hope everyone stays warm and dry.
Thank you, Yael.
And I'll see you next week, but then the following will be Purim. So I assume we will not meet that week. I think that's a good assumption. Okay. So I look forward to next week, pre-Purim week. But Shabbat Shalom and see you then.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat
Shalom.
Shalom.